Welcome to the third episode of the Sable International Citizenship podcast. My name is Tallulah, and I'm here with Mishal Patel, a British citizenship and immigration expert and director of our Immigration and Citizenship Division. It's 4th of July weekend in the States, so we thought we'd deal with something topical, namely how Americans might qualify for UK citizenship due to their ancestral ties. Mishal, maybe you can take us through the three most common routes to UK citizenship for Americans.
Sure, Tallulah. Yeah, it is indeed very topical. Hard to believe. I mean, that was 1776, I believe, when that happened. But here we are. And today we just want to touch on, the three most common routes we see people from the US qualifying for British citizenship, and specifically qualifying for British citizenship without actually relocating to the UK for a significant period of time or any period of time at all. So the first one that I want to just touch on is by descent. And it sounds simple, but at the same time, there is a lot of moving parts to that route. And simply, if your father was born in the UK, which is a very common one, or if your mum was born in the UK. Now, if your father was born in the UK, it really doesn't matter whether you're born, before the 1st of January 1983, and I'll come to why that date is important, or if you're born after that date. Now, the reason why that date is important is actually because on the 1st of January 1983, we had the current act come into force, which controls British nationality, and that was the first time that women could pass on British nationality in the same way men could, would you believe? So it does matter which parent was born in the UK, and then the next generation is born in the USA, for example. So if a father's born in the UK, like I said, then it should fairly be straightforward. Say, for example, you are born in 1976 in the USA, but your father was actually born in the UK. Things to look out for is, did your father naturalize as a US citizen before you were born? When did the naturalization happen? Because the UK did at some stage, and mainly before 1949, strip British subjects of their UK nationality when they naturalized as aliens, as they call, or foreign citizens.
So there are a couple of dates there. So let's just revise. So the first date is when you say that they were stripped of UK nationality. That was?
Right. So that was when someone naturalizes in this scenario as a US national before 1949.
Right, because it was a dual citizenship issue.
It was an issue in the UK, correct. So they didn't allow, if I was a British subject born in the UK, I went over to the US and I naturalized, immediately on naturalizing as a US citizen, especially before 1949, I'll be stripped of my British subject status.
Okay, and the other date you mentioned was the date that the UK government enacted its current citizenship legislation. Is that correct?
Correct, and that was on the 1st of January 1983. But alongside enacting the current act, it also then provided a provision for women to pass on British nationality for the first time in the same way men could. However, that change wasn't retrospective.
Right. So it's very important when you were born when it comes to claiming British citizenship by descent.
Correct. That's absolutely right. Yes. So if you are someone saying the same example as I gave, born in the US in 1976, but my mom was born in the UK. And let's say with all things being equal, i.e. my mom's never naturalized as a US citizen or anything of that nature. I was born to a British mom, but in 1976, I couldn't claim my mom's nationality by descent. So I can't have a claim to a British passport in the modern day as I would had it been my father. So these are all little things to look out for when you do have a parent who was born in the UK, for example, and you're born in the US. So that's usually the two scenarios we currently face on a weekly basis, where we see these family trees where you have either parent born in the UK and the next generation born in the US. Now, of course, if you're born in the US on or after the 1st of January 1983 and your mom was born in the UK, then that doesn't matter in terms of whether she can pass it on to you. Most likely she can.
Yes, because the law changed.
Yeah. Correct. It just wasn't retrospective. That's the main point here. So that's the number one sort of main route, and that does lead, if it does work out, to a British passport application. Now, these passports, as many people now would know, are actually being done in the UK for applicants based overseas, no longer done through the British Post abroad. So you can't go into a British consulate and apply down there anymore. That was stopped more than a few years ago, and now you have to apply directly to the UK.
So you have to do it in person in the UK?
No, you can do it while you're overseas. So It's an online-based application.
Okay.
And you have to post certain originals into the passport office in the UK, but you don't need to necessarily come to the UK to do it.
Okay.
You're treated as an overseas applicant, in other words.
And the second route?
So the second route, yes, I just want to get into, which is quite nice actually, because we mentioned that women couldn't pass on nationality before 1983. So if you are someone that's born in the US, and we see quite a few of these, you're born in the US, again, I use my example, 1976, and your mom was born in the UK, then you are allowed in the modern day to register as a British citizen. Again, that's a formal route of acquisition. It will allow you to become a British citizen and have a British passport, but you first got to register as a British citizen. So that takes me to my second route, which is registration as a British citizen. Many categories fall under that, but we can always talk about that number one category, which is through the mom, and you yourself are born in the US before 1983. So anyone listening to this podcast, if you are such a person, then you probably have a right to register as a British citizen now. Again, it doesn't require you to come to the UK. You can do it whilst you're abroad, whilst you're living in the US or wherever it is. And it is a fairly straightforward process, as long as you can prove the biological link between yourself and your mom, in other words, and that your mom never lost her British nationality before you were born. So you are born to a mom who's a British citizen, or at that point, what we call a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies. Now, a common misconception for people in the US, and I've heard it a lot of times because I've been talking to quite a few people from the US in the last 6 to 8 months, being stuck at home and having these phone consultations instead of actually meeting anyone. Is that a lot of people believe that my mom didn't have a British passport when I was born. Yes, she was born in the UK, but she didn't have a British passport, a valid British passport when I was born. That doesn't matter, because it's not that you're issued British citizenship on the day your passport is issued. British citizenship is issued by operation of law. So it doesn't matter if your mom didn't have a valid British passport when you were born in the USA, for example.
Yeah, a passport is not citizenship. Citizenship is not
Correct.
A passport. A passport is just the travel document that proves your citizenship.
Right, absolutely correct. Yes, that's right. So registering as a British citizen through your mom's birth in the UK would entitle you, like I said, to a British passport. And that opens up other doors as well for you and your family to then follow suit if you do want to move to the UK. So there is an advantage to getting it if you do have that claim. So that's the one registration type that we do see, especially for those born before 1983. The other registration that we've seen a lot of in the last, I would say, 3 years now, is, again, registration through a mother and someone born before 1983, but the mother wasn't born in the UK. It was her father who was born in the UK.
Right. So the citizenship passes down to her through her father, and then she can pass it down to you.
Through a formal registration in the modern day. And in a simple way of putting it, the reason why it's more recent, that route, is because we did have a court case that was won here in the UK that created a precedent, which I won't go into too much detail, but the straight facts of that case were that the lady that brought that action against the UK government was born in the US. In fact, she was a US applicant, and she was born before 1983 to a mother who was herself British by descent through her own father's birth in the UK. So that's the maternal grandfather born in the UK. Now, her argument was that had it been her father in that same position, then as a man, he was allowed to register her birth at the British consulate, which would have led to her, i.e. the applicant here, becoming a British national at the point of that birth being registered at the British consulate in the US. So men could, even though they weren't born in the UK or just British, could register their children. And that would have led to those children becoming British if those children were born in a foreign country, any country that's not part of the Commonwealth, which is the USA, for that matter. So her argument is that due to the gender discrimination in the earlier law before 1983, her mother couldn't register her birth because she was a woman. And she won that, and that's led to a lot of claims through the maternal grandfather's birth in the UK for people who are born in the US before 1983 to a British mom or a mother who, even if she doesn't know she was British because her dad was born in the UK. So if you ask someone again with a maternal grandfather born in the UK, then
so essentially you want to check your parents as well, not only your own citizenship status, but the status of your parents, and see if they are able to pass that down to you. And Mishal, is that what we call citizenship by double descent?
That's absolutely correct. And the reason why we dubbed it that is because the nearest born ancestor is in 2 generations down.
So hence the double.
Hence the double. Right. Because it's the maternal grandfather in this specific solution that allows the citizenship to pass to 2 generations there. Obviously, we use the court case to push it through, but we've done countless of them now, and it does work. So again, that's a registration.
Yeah, it is one of our most popular citizenship claims.
I'm always amazed on how many people there are in the US that do have ancestors born in the UK. So it's just worth checking where your grandparents were born, for example. And if they happen to be born in any part of the UK, great. This could apply to you, especially if you're born before 1983 and it comes down the maternal line, then this solution definitely applies. So that's the registration by double descent, as you said. The other one is a little bit different, which is again a registration provision, but now we're talking about illegitimacy. And earlier I mentioned that you can get British citizenship by descent through either parent, depending on which side of the law change you're born in, right? But there is another case where even if your dad was born in the UK or your mom was born in the UK and you happen to be born, say, for example, 1991 in the USA, but your parents weren't married when you were born, then unfortunately with British nationality law, they do have a distinction between those born in a marriage and out of a marriage. And they won't allow British nationality to pass children born out of a marriage, especially where it comes to the father. So the definition of parent for British nationality purposes only takes into account children born to a father, a married couple, in other words, or within a marriage. It's coming to the father, or it's always the mom. So if your mom's born in the UK, then you don't have to worry about the marriage as such. The mother is always taken as a parent for that definition.
Yes, of course, because of you wouldn't need a DNA test or anything to prove your mom's your mom. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But with the father, that was an issue, and it's still an issue, because again, just like the gender discrimination, this discrimination was not just, and they did change the law on the 1st of July 2006.
Wow, that recent. Yeah.
Yeah. So after that date, yes, you can just prove your paternity. You don't have to worry about it, and you'll be granted a British passport through your dad, even though you're born out of a marriage. You just have to prove the paternity. Now, that, again, just like the gender discrimination, this change was not made retrospective. So in other words, if you're born before the 1st of July 2006, you can't get it automatically through one's father, which then takes me to the registration, because what the UK did introduce in 2016 was certain provisions, about 3 or 4 provisions within the current Act, the British Nationality 81, that allows people in various positions who were born out of a marriage to register as British citizens if they can prove that had they been born in a marriage, they would be British now.
Right.
To trying to correct that sort of historic wrong.
Yes.
Just the same way as the gender discrimination, for example. All these are historic wrongs, and they do affect people in the USA, because we do see claims in the USA where it is as straightforward as my dad was born in the UK, but they got married after my birth, or they didn't get married, they actually split, or they decided to get married, which is absolutely fine. So in a scenario like that, we then have to look at whether that person can register as a British citizen, which in 99% of the cases they can. The real problem comes in is trying to prove the paternity on these type of claims, especially where the father subsequently passed away and so on. But that's, I think, where we come in with our experience, or what can be the alternative proof to prove the paternity. But again, that we see that countless times now, where unfortunately they've applied to the passport. The passport officer said, "No, you don't have a claim because you're born out of a marriage," and then we have to go ahead and register them as a British citizen first, which then allows them to claim a certificate of registration. Then they use that certificate to then apply for a British passport.
Right. So when we're talking about registration, what we're basically talking about is whether you are automatically a citizen or whether you first have to claim your citizenship through the registration. So if you are automatically a citizen, and there's no doubt about that, you were born, your parents were both born in the UK, that came over to the US, and they had a child, they were both married. That's simple. That's the passport application. But when it's more complicated, first you have to prove your citizenship to the UK by kind of claiming it with this registration.
Correct.
And that's the key difference. And then you can get the passport once you've done that registration.
Yes, once you've been registered as a British citizen, then the passport application is more of a formality. It shouldn't be that difficult, because at this stage now you're a British citizen already, having been registered. So that's another common one that we see, and we're seeing a lot of these now coming in. And I think the last one under the registration sort of heading is for children, actually. So children under the age of 18 specifically. And I mentioned this because, again, we see these, and sometimes we see them a little bit too late or almost too late. So they come to us when they're like 17 with 10 days left, or even I had one just 48 hours.
Wow.
But we managed to put it in, which is great.
Wow, that's amazing.
But you'd rather not.
Yes, because that's a bit of a risk. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have dual citizens in the USA at the moment. There are countless of them who are British and US citizens, or British citizens living in the USA. Now, what we notice is that these parents are what we call British by descent. So in other words, they can't pass their nationality automatically, as you said, to children born in the USA or anywhere out of the UK for that matter. However, these parents who are British by descent have lived in the UK themselves. Specifically, they've lived in the UK for, say, a minimum of 3 years, which is kind of what's required for this registration. And then themselves are British by descent because they were born out of the UK to a parent who was themselves born in the UK. Okay.
So, for example, it would be somebody who decided maybe as a teen that they wanted to go over to the UK. They worked. They spent 3 years living there, and then they left again.
Correct.
But their parents were born in the UK, and they did that time in the UK. And those are the two requirements. And then their child isn't automatically British because they themselves weren't born in the UK, but
can be registered as British citizens, but that registration has a deadline, which is the 18th birthday.
Well, they're still a child,
While they're still a minor, yes, correct. So the point there is we do have a lot of children born to British citizens by descent in the USA, which is great in one way because the children do pick up US citizenship, so they're not stateless. But at the same time, if the parents want the children to get British citizenship, then they need to act on that sort of as quickly as possible, not leaving it to the last minute, especially where they need to prove they themselves, as the parent or the British parent, lived in the UK at some stage for, say, 3 years before their children were born.
And this counts as well if they're currently living in the UK, right? So if you're British by descent, so
Yes.
that means you can live in the UK because you're
Yes.
British, and you
Yes.
have a child, and you've been living there for about 3 years. Your child doesn't automatically become British just because they were born in the UK. You have to live there for the 3 years, and then you have to register the child
Yes.
as a UK citizen.
Correct. So even if you have, say US nationals who, again, maybe dual citizens who have come back to the UK or lived here and decide to come back in the future, and they brought their children who are US citizens back with them, then yes, you've got to live here for a minimum of 3 years usually. And if at the end of those 3 years, your children are still under the age of 18, then we can register them as British citizens whilst they're still under 18 and have the 3 years, and they were born to a parent who is British, which ideally would be the case. We have, the usual what we see is one parent is British, children are US citizens, and husband or the wife is a US citizen as well, and they're just relocating to the UK.
Yeah, just to ensure that the children get that UK citizenship.
Ensure the children get that. Yeah, correct. Yeah, so they could move back in, and you kind of have to move in before the eldest child, if you have two or just the child, is 15, because you want to be able to amass a 3-year period of residence for the entire family, including that child, before the 18th birthday. See, if you move in when they're 16, then that might not really work. You don't have the 3 years. So, but that registration is obviously, it requires movement to the UK, relocation to the UK, and residence in the UK. Whereas the previous one that I was going over doesn't require that. So if you are, a British citizen and you do have children born in the USA and they are under 18 now, and you, as a British citizen, you have lived in the UK for, say, 2.5 to 3 years, it's worth getting in touch and getting that looked at before it's too late. What you don't want is an awkward scenario, which has happened to me, where one sibling gets it and the other siblings miss the boat.
Oh, shame.
That's not nice. Trust me, very hard to explain. So
we are going to be doing a whole episode dedicated to children under 18 and all the various ways that they can qualify for British citizenship.
Correct. Yeah, we'll cover that a little bit more in depth there as well, alongside other age sort of limited applications. But so that's we covered different registration types there through the mum specifically on the first two. Then we got illegitimacy. We covered there as well, and we got the what we call the 3-2 registration, which is the one that the parent has spent 3 years and is British by descent. I don't think we covered adoption, did we, Talua?
No, not yet.
No, so I think that's worth just quickly mentioning is that, especially over the last couple of years, I've been looking into it quite a lot in my team, which is the UK still has a distinction between biological children and adopted children. So children who have been adopted by, say, British citizens abroad, in other words. So where a biological child can get rights to British citizenship almost automatically or registration, adopted child doesn't fall into that definition. Basically, just because they're adopted, they're not biologically the children. And what we have been able to do as a firm and working with the Home Office here in the UK is push forward different scenarios to the Home Office to get them to close that gap. Because even now, as we speak, there's no law that covers that. There is a discretionary provision that that allows us to paint a picture and ask for the Home Office to exercise discretion to register that child. But the problem is the word child. In other words, i.e., again, at the time of the application, that adopted child has to be under 18 years old. Otherwise, again, they miss that opportunity. Now, what I would so quickly want to say is if again, we have fair few, not that many, but fair few children who have been adopted by British citizens in the USA. Now, again, what we've been able to do as a firm is say to the Home Office and agree with the Home Office that they should register an adopted child as a British citizen if we are able to prove that had that child been the biological child of that same parent, they would have been entitled to register as a British citizen, or they will be British automatically.
So similar to the the case of an illegitimate child, it would be
very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar, correct. Just trying to make things equal and fair across these different type of sort of scenarios, especially where we know the law doesn't hasn't adapted to that situation. So we've got to ask for discretion. So it's fairly something that's more recent, but we have had quite a bit of experience and success. So again, one worth mentioning there as well. So that's registration and different variations of it, Talua. And I think to go into the next one quickly, because it does take some time to explain these, but we got the next one is marriage to a British citizen. And I specifically mentioned this in a pre-49 scenario, where if you are married to a British national and that marriage happened before 1949, then that still in the modern day allows you as the wife and that marriage happening to you to claim British citizenship. And in fact, you would be a British citizen most likely in the modern day.
So remind me why it's 1949?
Sure, because in the period before 1949, the law at that point, the British nationality law, at that stage allowed women to automatically acquire their husband's British nationality. And as long as the woman then didn't subsequently go renounce that British nationality, it would have evolved throughout the ages to become British citizenship in the modern day. And hence again, claim a British passport. Now, of course, these are rare, but there are a handful to mention. We've had about, I would say, this year itself, we've had about, I would say, close around 20 of these applications come through. Oh. Some of them had the documents that go through, some of them didn't. But we do have people that are still around who had married a British citizen before 1949. And it's as simple as, because marriage now to a British citizen doesn't give you those rights.
No, you have to get a spousal visa, you have to live with them in the UK, spend 5 years in the UK, get ILR, and then claim citizenship. Right. So it's a 6-year process, really.
Correct. Absolutely. And now one of these sort of side effects of getting British nationality as a woman that way is that in the modern day, if you had children born to you before 1983, so, for example, say I married a British national in 1941, and, whether I know it or not, I'm British because of that marriage. Now, if I have children born to me in 1976 in the USA, again, those children can register, would you believe, as British citizens through that earlier amendment to the gender discrimination that I mentioned, an application to registration, basically. So not only am I able to claim nationality because of that marriage, but if I have any children born to me before 1983, so can they.
Which is, again, why it's so important to check your grandparents and your parents' nationality options as well when trying to look at your options.
Correct.
Because sometimes there's you need that stepping stone of the previous generation, and that's where the magic happens.
Right, because sometimes even I find I'm still sort of 12, 13 years doing this. I'm still astonished when that happens. Going, not only do you have it, but also your children have it. And if they get that now, then they could do the right thing, and their children could perhaps get it in the future. And so it goes on. But at some stage, you gotta look at your family documents. But I mentioned that for those two reasons. One, not only does the wife get it, but also her children born before 1983 can acquire it through her as well. So again, if you're someone born in the USA, your parents got married before 1949, and you specifically know that your father was either born in the UK, or maybe he was British because his dad was born in the UK, then again, those are the right ingredients for a claim like that, not just for your mom, but for yourself. So one must worth investigating a little bit more. So that's marriage. So before 1949 to a British national, and how her children can acquire the nationality. Now the other thing I wanted to just quickly mention was, just before I forget, is right of abode, because I've seen it talked about a lot lately, and it ties in with what I've just said. So if you just go back to what I've just said to you, Talua, which is before 1949, you get British nationality. if you're married to a British man. But from the 1st of January 1949 to the 1st of January 1983, so that period of time, if you are a woman who is a Commonwealth citizen who married a British man, now whether he was born in UK or he's British because his dad was born in UK, it works either way. It's fine. But if you are a Commonwealth citizen married in this period of time to a British man, then you would be entitled to the right of abode of the United Kingdom. Now, I say it is an entitlement. It's not a grant. It's automatic. In other words, just like how nationality is passed on, this is passed on automatically to the woman on the date of a marriage. But it won't apply to women who are US citizens married to British men because they're not Commonwealth citizens. But what we have noticed is a lot of people in the USA also have Canadian citizenship. So that is a Commonwealth citizenship. And you would be entitled, therefore, to right of abode as that sort of person. Now, the thing with the right of abode is it is still very much alive. A lot of people think it's not, but it is. And it does entitle the holder to visa-free access to the UK. And there are no time restrictions on their stay in the UK either. In fact, there are no restrictions. It's probably, well, how I best describe it to people, the next best thing to being a British passport holder. And if you lived in the UK, if you choose to live in the UK for 5 years or 3 or 5 years, depending if you're married to a British citizen or not, on the right of abode, then you can naturalize as a British citizen anyway. So again, it's a good stepping stone if you do want to get a British passport. So I just want to quickly mention that before we moved on, because I've seen that being mentioned in a few forums and a lot of people talking about it in a pre-1983, 1971 context, whereas I think in the modern day, it's really just, it's worth just sort of re-mentioning what it means in the modern day, which is it's an entitlement, it's visa-free access to the UK and no restrictions on your stay or work in the UK, in other words. So I just wanted to quickly mention that. Probably, I think it's worth talking also. I think you asked me the other day, didn't you, Talu, like what's your most unusual or something like that case?
Yes. I was curious about what is the most unusual case that you have encountered for US citizens or people living in the USA who have claimed UK citizenship.
I think, I mean, it would have to be, I mean, it is a bit old. It's been a while, but it's still very unusual to see it. And I've probably never seen it again, which was someone that approached us some time back. And this was, I think, when I was still training. So it wasn't like it was my case, but I still remember it, which was a gentleman that was born before 1983. And after we did our investigations and all that, it actually turned out that, yes, he's a US national born in the USA, perhaps for 1983, but it actually turned out that he had a claim to register as a British citizen through his mother's previous husband.
So not his father.
Not his father. Yeah, another man basically that she had married to before she married his father and then had him, in other words.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was because of what I said earlier, when I mentioned marriage before 1949. Now, this person, his mom had been married to a British citizen before 1949 and picked up nationality. Now, subsequently, they divorced, but the law doesn't strip her of her British nationality when she divorces. It gives it, but doesn't strip it automatically.
Right.
And she never renounced it. And then she married a US citizen, and then this gentleman was born. And it turned out that his mom had been British all her time from the date of her first marriage.
So he got citizenship through someone he hadn't even met who had been involved with his mom
absolutely
long before he was born. Now that's a stroke of luck.
That is a stroke of luck. And he couldn't quite believe it as well. I mean, needless to say, it did make the news at that point in the office. Everyone was talking about it because no one of us could quite believe how that's happened. But really sit down and work it out properly. But sometimes the law is mischievous.
Yeah, and family trees are fascinating. You never know what small aspect of your family tree can lead to, weird and wonderful citizenship opportunities.
Absolutely. And actually, it reminded me of another case, which actually worth mentioning on this podcast, is that I had a lady who was born in the UK in the period before 1983 in the UK. And usually if you're born in the UK before 1983, you get nationality just because you're born here. Just like how it is in the US, I believe, at the moment. But the thing is there is one reason why you wouldn't be British if you're born in UK before 1983. And that's if you're born to a father who was a diplomat or was afforded diplomatic privileges or was immune to sort of suit and legal processes in the UK. Now, her dad, and I specifically remember this because I used to live in a part of London where it was very next to what the Royal Air Force is now, but previously was a US Air Force base. And her dad was a US Air Force man. So he actually was employed by US Air Force and was in the UK at the time.
But employed by the US, not by the UK.
Not by the UK.
Yeah.
No, we still have a large number of US Air Force bases or training grounds here now. But at that point, there were larger numbers of them here than there are now. But they had children born here. And she was one of those people that was born in the UK to a father who was serving in the US Air Force. Now, the thing is with the US Air Force, and they are immune to most legal processes in the UK. So they can't be tried here domestically in the UK. They have immunity. But we were able to argue out that his immunity was partial. He didn't have full immunity. And we did actually end up winning that argument. And she was granted a British passport. But what was fascinating about it was that, all her life, she was born in the UK. She had a UK birth certificate. She'd gone back to the US, but she just put this birth certificate away in a cupboard and just the UK birth certificate away in a cupboard and never really thought, because, she'd been told it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
For X, Y, and Z reason. And maybe she had tried, I think, and they actually refused it. But it's just worth mentioning again, because from what I know from that time, that there were over, sort of 50,000 or so of these children born in the UK to US Air Force men. So again, worth people knowing that.
And how can you argue that, or how did we manage to win the argument that he only had partial immunity?
Right. So there is an act that actually covers this type of immunity, but it's highly complex. But it's called the Diplomatic Privileges Act 64. And it talks a little bit about where people are immune and how much immunity they have. And that alongside some of I learned a hell lot in that one because
it's a lot of legal work and research and to build the argument.
Right, because there was a Visiting Forces Act 52 that covered visiting forces to the UK and so on. And that again talked about, what would happen if one of the US Air Force men decided to get a bit drunk and smash someone's, I don't know, front door in or something like that. Would there be... So we are able to then develop an argument that his rank and what he was here for only afforded him partial immunity at that point. And for that reason, it worked because of that partial immunity across those couple of different pieces of legislation. Complex, but quite rewarding because I think for the last, she's definitely in her mid-40s. So I think for the last 30 or 40 years, she's always thought that's a no, it's a no-go, basically. Yeah. Now, not only did she get it, and this is the real, cherry on the top for me, her children can register as British citizens because she got her nationality. So children born before 1983 can register.
Yeah.
Now that, we're allowed to do that. So it created another class of British citizens, basically, who have never even come to the UK, just because their mum was born there. Yeah. So it just reminded me.
All these weird, strange and interesting routes. So I also wanted to ask you, what should people do if they think they might have a claim, or if they're just intrigued based on what you've spoken about today and they want to check their own family?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's very straightforward. We've been able to develop a system where we can provide free of charge assessments or status traces. So basically where they can come in, input all their family details on our website, and we'll definitely, mention that link in a transcript of this podcast.
Yes, you can actually find the link below in the description as well.
Great. So you click on that link, guys, then that will take you on to our website, and where you'll be asked to input your details, your parents, grandparents, and don't worry if you don't have all the details at once. You can always log back in and keep on uploading this thing until it's accurate. And what that does is gives an accurate picture of what your family tree looks like. In other words, now once you've done that, then you can order one of our free status traces, and you will see that button once you've finished all inputting all your data. Now, once you click that button, then myself and my team will get an alert to log in and assess your family tree, after which we can provide, some inclination of where you lie. What are your chances?
Basically, the likelihood, right? So if you're extreme, if it's a definite thing, if it's extremely likely, if it's going to be one of these complex cases, or if there's no chance.
Correct, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to lead anyone up this kind of garden path and then take money and then at the end of it say, oh, no, it doesn't work, because we didn't do our due diligence. We're not in that business. And, we really don't want to give people hope when there isn't any. And we want to be as transparent as possible from the get-go. So what we like to do is brainstorm each family tree and give an accurate answer on what we think the likelihood is, as you said. And there are those 4 outcomes that you just mentioned. So, for example, if the outcome is likely, then you'll give an option to then, engage with our staff, or myself for that matter. So that would be one possibility. And if it's unlikely or completely remote, then at least and you know what any alternatives to move to the UK are. We do, if you feel like you need to email in, then you can email in. Again, you can find all our details on our website or by clicking that link. And you can email us in if there's something you can't input on that family tree, but it's worth mentioning, then please email that in separately alongside the mentioning. Actually, you could please use the same email address as you used to register on our website.
Yes, so and our system, because our system can see if it'll add it to your case. Yeah, if you use the same email address.
I believe that's the best way to get the answer. And like I said, it's completely free of charge. There's no obligations at this stage.
Yeah, and it's all online. You can take your time with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Mishal. This has been really interesting. Pleasure. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. In the next episode, we'll be fully focused on those unusual routes to UK citizenship from various places, not just the US. And we might even have a special guest. So that's one you won't want to miss. Until then, you can actually send us your questions if you go to Anchor FM. That's anchor.fm/Sable International, Sable, SABLE -international, INTERNATIONAL. And you can click on the message us and record a quick voice note for us with your questions. And we may use that in a future episode, or it might actually inspire a topic for a future episode. So please don't hesitate to do that. For more information, you can go to our website, www.sableinternational.com. And we will also be posting the episode transcript there with all of the relevant links. So if you missed any of those complicated dates or any of that, then you can go and check it out on the transcript. It'll all be written out for you. Okay, thank you very much. Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye.